Mythic Plus. The bastard son who took over the family business. The bastard son who took over the kingdom. Or was it the bastard son who did that thing with your mom? I mean... But let's put everything into perspective. Did the bastard son take over the game because the first son, the raid, was an incompetent creature, was an incompetent design, or was the bastard son just that good?
May I present to you my spy in the Ministry of Defense? Fat bastard.
First things first, where's your shitter? I've got a turtle head poking out.
Before we talk about improvements we can do for Mythic Plus, let's identify the current issues that exist with it. One of the biggest issues with Mythic Plus is that it pretty much invalidates the raid. There are two main ways that it does this. One is by gear, which the Attic Goblin covers pretty well.
I think also, I think Heroic and Normal mode get hurt the most by Mythic Plus. Because why would you ever invest your time into doing a Heroic raid, even unless it's a very smooth raid, if you can do Mythic Plus and get the same exact gear?
And the other way is its ease of access in comparison. It requires a lot less time commitment, it's easier to repeatedly target the items you want. Now, just because I'm saying it is easier doesn't mean that it is actually easy. I've already made videos talking about how loot in WoW sucks massive dick. Mythic Plus is just the lesser of two evils, where in a raid your chance of getting the item you want specifically is about 2%, while in a Mythic Plus it's a whopping 5 to 6%. Okay, so not great percentages there. But either way, this video's focus isn't really about the RNG and the casino that is in WoW, but if you're interested to check out my videos talking about this issue, I would recommend checking out my video Personal versus Group Loot and Why I Already Quit Dragonflight. And of course, there are also issues that are brought by the timer and the key and the punishment nature of Mythic Plus, but I've already talked about that extensively in a previous video that talks about Mythic Plus specifically, and it has more to do with the dungeon design rather than the Mythic Plus system itself. Other minor issues with Mythic Plus is that it's simply boring, for lack of a better word. What I mean by this, since boring is subjective, let me explain. The reason I'm saying it's boring is because once you are doing anything higher than a Mythic Plus 10 on all dungeons, nothing really changes. Enemies just hit harder and have more HP. There's really nothing interesting in Mythic Plus once you reach Mythic 10s. And now especially it's even worse, because to get best gear you need to do 20s instead of 15s, and it's just stale. There are of course the issues with balance and such, but I just want to talk about Mythic Plus as a system rather than the individual patch issues. So how should we go about Mythic Plus? And how can we make it a system that not only does not compete with raid, is still a very valid progression system for the whole expansion? And luckily, we already had a system in place in Shadowlands. And I know what you're thinking, Shadowlands, you're crazy, like we don't want anything to do with Shadowlands, but give me a second, Introducing... I don't have a name for this yet, but like the new Mythic Plus overhaul. Give me a break, okay? I'm still learning how to edit shit. But anyways, yeah, the box of many things could be easily implemented into Mythic Plus. As you do Mythic Plus, you receive a currency which allows you to unlock talents, which can add certain boons to your character or class, allowing you to go into higher Mythic Plus keys. And here are just some examples of Mythic Plus talents that I thought could be pretty cool and fun to advance into Mythic Plus with. Zephos Remembrance, which is a nice callback to the legendary ring in Legion. When stunning or interrupting an enemy, gain 15% to primary and secondary stats for 15 seconds. Gotta go fast. Increase movement speed by 35% and regenerate 5% HP per second for 5 seconds after leaving combat, which is very similar to Bear Tartar, which is also from Legion. We can also look into adding role-specific talents or a choice of 3. For example, you're a DPS, you might want to take Maverick or My Ride or Die. However, if you're a tank, you might also want to take My Ride or Die or Maverick. If let's say everyone is ranged, then you can take Maverick and stuff like that. So this would be like an option for you to take out of 3 or out of 5. We also have Science, bitch.
Yeah, Mr. White. Yes, science.
Which is basically whenever your abilities hit your friends, so for example heals and things like that, it would increase their food buff by 5%, stacking up to 20 times or whatever, you know. And of course we can also add class specific or spec specific talents that would improve a certain ability. Usually I would go with an ultimate ability, kind of like Wings for a paladin, Frost, Worm, Rage, Army of the Dead, something like that. So here's an example of abilities that can be modified in the Mythic Plus talent system. We can also add things like during combat, enemies will drop an orb. Let's say red orb increases damage done, blue orb reduces damage taken, green orb increase healing or does an AoE heal on the group, something like that. And also let's not forget one of the best systems that was ever in the game that made the game extremely fun, but the implementation was extremely bad, and that is, well, I'm gonna let Limit Max talk about that one.
A spicy one. This one is impossible to rate because it's like actively made the game worse, but also was so fucking good. It's like S and actively made the game worse at the same time.
So yeah, corruptions, in my opinion, one of the best things that were added to the game, not in the best way. The corruption vendor was garbage, the acquisition was garbage from items and stuff like that, but when you managed to get the corruption, not only did it change your gameplay, it made everything so much more fun. So adding something like that into the Mythic Plus box of talents, many things, talent, whatever, you get my point. So adding something like that into the system would be very appreciated. And of course, let's not forget the essences. Now, obviously, there are way too many essences to choose from, but in my opinion, there were 3 specific ones that were just everyone was using them, and of course the best one, the one that looked the best, the one that pretty much everyone wanted to get level 4 for, the Essence Beam or the Kamehameha Wave, whatever you want to call it. That one by far was the most satisfying one to press, to see, and just to play with. So that was the system part, which can easily be turned into its own progression system and reducing the item level requirement, making the gear not as important as your Mythic Plus talent progression, which lead us to the main issue, how Mythic Plus ruins the raid and how this type of system can prevent that. To further elaborate on the issue, here's our special guest, the Balding Goblin.
I don't see why people can't figure it out, but they can't. And I think that you can always tell the player you're wrong, you need to get better, etc. But whenever people quit the raid and they stop playing, who's winning? Nobody. Because Raszageth drops 411 gear. In my opinion, I think it's easier to do a plus 20. Actually, you don't even need to do a plus 20. I think you need to only do like a plus 19 or something like that, or plus 18 to upgrade your gear above Raszageth level. So why would anybody invest any time in waiting for 10 plus people, 16 plus, there you go, invest all of that time just to do Raszageth on Heroic to get inferior gear to Mythic Plus?
So how can this Mythic Plus system prevent colliding with raid? There are a few ways. One would be to remove gear altogether and just give cosmetic armors, weapons, enchants, and mounts instead, while specifically scaling item level in Mythic Plus where your gear won't play too big of a role, except maybe secondary stat scaling, but I doubt many players would be okay with that. We can introduce a gear scaling mechanic similar to PvP, or we can just leave the gearing as it is, but the talents would play such an important role that you won't be able to so easily reach the highest gear drops without upgrading talents, delaying people from outgearing the raid too soon. The way I see it, the talent system should be account-wide, thus allowing alts to more easily get into Mythic Plus, as gear in the Mythic Plus dungeons won't play as big of a role as the talents. This of course leaves us with a big question: should the talents be changed and reset every season, or should they be reset with the expansion? I believe resetting and changing the talents each season would probably be for the best, especially if we add cosmetic rewards at the extremely high keys, somewhat even out the playing field with each season. This is pretty much it for this video, but I did want to add some honorable mentions to other talents I came up with and didn't end up making visual representations for. Finishing a Mythic Plus with +2 speed opens a portal to an extra boss with 1 extra guaranteed loot for the chest. Increase range of abilities class to class basis. Instant combat res on death does not count towards B-res count and would still give options to accept or save instant res for later. Extra damage to trash or boss. Lust increases another secondary stat by the same amount. Echo, your abilities have a 50% chance to activate a second time for 20% effectiveness. Seasonal talent, Dragon's Blessing. Choose one out of the 5 aspects blessings. Black Dragonflight, extra damage based on current HP. Red Dragonflight, healing allies, burns enemies around target. Green Dragonflight, crowd control removal once every 30 seconds, automatic effect. Yellow Dragonflight, cooldown reduction. Blue Dragonflight, I don't know, some magic shit. Unused talent choices, pick one of 3. Mass Polymorph doesn't work on boss. Spell Reflect Zone, similar to Death Knight Anti-Magic Zone, but reflects all spells that are cast from outside of the zone. Stop affixes. Affixes cannot happen in the next 30 seconds, as an example. Mass Seduction, because I couldn't find a better way to describe it. All enemies in a 30-yard radius will run towards you for 5 seconds, unable to cast or attack for the duration. Percent chance for BOA gear to drop from Mythic Plus as extra loot 2 tiers lower than the current key. I had a few more of them, but they are kinda covered within other talents, so I'm not gonna go over them. But anyways, that is the video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Would this overhaul be a cool change to Mythic Plus? Make it so it doesn't compete with the raiding scene too much. Make it a completely separate endgame system that is fun and that you can progress with each season. In my opinion, each season should bring out new talents, a new way to play the dungeon, which would make it extremely fresh and unique way to do the content. Anyways, thank you for watching. Leave a comment down below, tell me what you think, like, subscribe, all that stuff, and see you in the next one. Take care.